is a serial killer responsible for the murders of 3 women in a rural North Carolina community. Hard hit by the opioid crisis, 5 years have passed since Megan Oxendine, Rhonda Jones, and Christina, Kristen, Bennett were found dead in Lumberton, NC, and their families are desperate for answers. The discoveries. On April 18, 2017, law enforcement officers responding to a concerned citizen's call reporting foul odor discovered the body of 32-year-old Christina, Kristen, Bennett inside an abandoned home at 505 Peachtree Street. Her badly decomposed corpse had been wrapped in a blanket and stuffed inside a television cabinet. Neighbors gathering near the home to observe the police activity quickly noted an additional foul odor emanating from a nearby trash can. They opened the garbage bin, which, although located outside 702 East 5th Street, had the 505 Peachtree Street address marked on its side, and discovered yet another set of human remains. Rhonda Jones, a 36-year-old grandmother. Both victims were noted to be nude and were badly decomposed, leading law officials to infer that the women had been dead for some time prior to discovery. Due to decomposition, neither victim was identified for several weeks. In late May or early June of 2017, a local woman named Megan Oxendine gave an interview to a TV news station regarding the discovery of the remains. At the time, although unconfirmed, the news outlet as well as many community members were operating under the assumption that at least one of the victims was missing. Local woman Rhonda Jones. Megan's statement alluded to Rhonda's sweet and quiet disposition, and the fact that the grandmother was beloved by her family. Megan also told reporters that Rhonda didn't mess with too many people. Shortly after Megan's interview, the 28-year-old's nude body was discovered outside 608 East 8th Street, just blocks from where Rhonda and Kristen had been found. Megan was also located behind a vacant house, and someone had attempted to conceal her body using weeds, tree branches, and roof shingles. Locals who observed her body on the day that she was found claim that she had a wound to the back of her head, and that something appeared to be stuffed in her mouth. Megan's family was informed that she'd been found in the fetal position, as if she were attempting to hide or defend herself from something. These statements have not been confirmed by law enforcement. The investigation. The Raleigh medical examiner completed autopsies for all 3 victims, although the results were not released to the families or public until nearly a year later, leading to frustration from relatives and community members. The results in question, however, only raised more queries and concerns. The cause of death for all 3 women was concluded to be undetermined. This was largely due to the significant decomposition of the bodies. Rhonda, Kristen, and Megan all had traces of cocaine in their systems. Although it was not enough to be the cause of death, all 3 women had struggled with substance use disorders in their lives. But overdose or tainted drug supply was ultimately not their cause of death. The ME noted that Rhonda had cuts on her nose, forehead, and chin, although these were estimated to be from when her body was stuffed into the trash bin. Rhonda had also suffered abrasions to her back and a fractured nose. The cause of these injuries has not been determined, but investigators reportedly told Rhonda's mother that Rhonda had died fighting for her life. The ME stated that also the cause of death was unclear. An asphyxia injury could not be ruled out. However, due to the undetermined cause of death, None of the deaths have been officially designated as murders. Lumberton police quickly realized that they were dealing with a potential serial killer and requested assistance from the FBI. FBI agents from Charlotte canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on over 800 doors and gathering tips, though nothing that would lead to an arrest. Sheila Oxendine, Megan's mother, has stated that Megan was attacked in the weeks after Rhonda and Kristen's remains were found. She was beaten and her hair was cut during the assault. Megan had also reportedly told her family that she and a male companion had been doing drugs inside the house where Kristen's body was found, and that she'd seen the body herself. The FBI has stated that Megan was not the person who made the police report that led to Kristen's discovery. Megan claimed not to have seen the individuals who attacked her, but Sheila urged her daughter to speak with police and requested that the detective in charge of Rhonda and Kristen's murder investigation call her in order to interview Megan. Sheila says that the detective never called back. She believes that Megan had valuable information concerning Rhonda and Kristen's deaths, and that Megan was killed because of what she knew. Frustrated loved ones demand justice. In the years that followed the deaths of the three Lumberton women, their families called for answers and were largely met with silence. Megan's mother reports that detectives initially pressed her to consider her daughter's struggle with substance abuse, and the other women's relatives have agreed that the three women were initially written off as prostitutes and drug users. Rhonda and Megan were both indigenous, which may have contributed to law enforcement initially dismissing the deaths. Indigenous women in the United States face murder rates of up to 10 times the national average, but their cases typically garner less attention than their white peers. Additionally, rape kits taken at the autopsies were not processed for over 20 months. Law enforcement stated that this was because medical examiners did not believe that the results would yield much information given the states of decomposition. Indeed, when the results were analyzed, they did not provide positive results. The neighborhood in which Rhonda, Kristen, and Megan were found is known locally as a low stroll, rife with abandoned and derelict homes and frequented by sex workers and drug users. As previously noted, all three women had struggled with substance use disorders, specifically cocaine and opiates. Megan was awaiting a court date related to a prostitution charge when she died. It's unknown whether Rhonda or Kristen had engaged in sex work, regardless of their statuses as sex workers or drug users. Rhonda, Kristen, and Megan deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and to have their cases treated as urgent and important by law enforcement. It should be noted that Robeson County, where Lumberton is located, has an unusually high number of missing persons, as well as significant rates of violent and drug-related crime. It has been called the most dangerous city in North Carolina. In the early 2000s, a federal and state investigation into Robeson County drug enforcement officers resulted in 22 officers pleading guilty on charges ranging from kidnapping to armed robbery and drug trafficking. In the years following Rhonda, Kristen, and Megan's deaths, other vulnerable women, also known to have struggled with drug addiction, have gone missing from the area. The FBI, NC State Bureau of Investigation, and Lumberton Police have continued investigating, pursuing hundreds of leads and interviewing hundreds of individuals. In 2021, the FBI reported that they had new and promising evidence in the investigation, although they declined to specify what the evidence was. During the same interview, An FBI agent stated that the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit had developed a potential profile on the behaviors of the individual involved in the women's deaths. The person may have left the community shortly after the women were found dead. And if they did not leave, their behavior may have changed significantly. They may have begun drinking heavily, or quit their job. They may have even confessed to involvement in the deaths and been brushed off. Agents urged community members to contact law enforcement with any relevant information, no matter how seemingly insignificant. Investigators believe that they need information from the community to help complete the puzzle and match up with the evidence they've already collected. Rhonda's mother, Sheila Price, has formed a group called Shatter the Silence in order to advocate for victims of violent crime in Robeson County. She, along with Kristen and Megan's loved ones, continue to press law enforcement to consider the women's deaths murders and to identify the individual responsible. Sheila has also worked closely with doctoral student Crystal Red Bear Cavalier Keck to start a regional database of local missing individuals. Most of them are people of color whose cases are less likely to garner attention from media and law enforcement. As of 2022, the reward for information regarding the circumstances of the 3 women's deaths is $40,000. Anyone with relevant information is asked to call the FBI's Charlotte office at 6,726,100. Author's note: this write-up is in no way intended to glorify or make light of Rhonda, Kristen, and Megan's deaths, but rather an attempt to bring awareness to their cases. Both Rhonda and Megan were Indigenous. And as we all know, missing and murdered Indigenous women, children, and 2S folks are often dismissed and ignored by media and law enforcement alike. A link to the group founded by Rhonda's mom, Shatter the Silence, can be found below. Sources: